Welcome to Grit, the Real Estate Growth Mindset podcast, hosted by Brian Charlesworth, founder of Sisu. Sisu provides growth automation software for real estate. You'll hear stories from real estate thought and technology leaders, team owners, and brokers on how they grew their business in a rapidly changing industry. You'll learn how to transform your brokerage and teams into a high-performing and analytics-driven business so you have a new, durable, competitive advantage against disruption in your market. So let's get right into it.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Grit Podcast. I'm Brian Charlesworth. I'm the founder of Sisu and the host of the show. And today I'm here with Kristan Cole. And just learned that Kristan has been in the industry for over 30 years, a long time, very amazing. She runs a real estate team, actually multiple teams is my understanding, both in Alaska and in Arizona. And so I know there are very few people capable of running teams that are that far apart. So I do want to get into that today. She's also the vice president of mega agent expansion for Keller Williams. And she owns a KW brokerage, I believe, with 3 expansion offices. So in addition to running teams, you're running brokerages, which is another thing I want to get into. And without having even met you today, I know you're a great example of grit, which is the name of our podcast. Having been in the business as long as you have, and you're still creating and leading and growing all of your businesses. So that being said, Kristan, what do you have to add to that? Maybe you can correct any mistakes that I made in that intro.
Sure. So I was the vice president of mega agent expansion for about 4 years, and I had made a commitment to Gary Keller to do that. And it was really to launch something. Anytime you launch a new product, there's a time period that it takes a product to be adopted in order for it to really become an industry standard. So expansion was launched in 2014 in February. And now, we have some very large expansion teams across the country. The Kristan Cole Real Estate Network right now, we are in 44 different locations across the U.S. Last year we closed 1,400 transactions, about 300 million in volume. This year our goal is to close 2,500, which it's growing all the time, which makes it fun. I am an OP of 2 market centers here in Scottsdale and Prescott, Arizona, along with 4 business centers and 4 mega agent offices. I do have my mega agent office in Alaska, which is my hub, which is where everything started for sure. And then I own some other businesses as well, title company, things like that. But for the most part, I say this all the time. My money can do a lot of things, but I can only drive one. And my driver is real estate expansion and helping other leaders get where they want to go. So that's where I'm all in at. My money's involved in other things, but that's my driving. That's what gets me up every day.
Okay, so I think a lot of people have tried expansion and failed. Maybe not outside of KW, because outside of KW, teams aren't nearly as prevalent. But why don't you talk to us? If something you just said, it sounds to me like the key to expansion is surrounding yourself with the right people and hiring leaders who can actually lead those businesses for you, so you don't have to be in the grind in every one of those. Maybe you could tell us more about that.
Yeah, and I think for expansion, the reason that some people have had trouble with it is because they didn't let it naturally and organically happen. Meaning this, when I expanded the first time, my hub is in Wasilla, Alaska, and it's a fairly small town. Actually, it's a very small town. And when we got to a point of saturation, meaning we had so much market share that to take additional market share would cost more than going into another location and taking market share. That's when we actually decided to expand into Anchorage. Anchorage is about 45 minutes away. It has a $100,000 higher average sales price. The number of days on the market is 30 days fewer. And instead of there being about 1,200 transactions a year in Anchorage, there's about 4,000. So a lot bigger pool. So my first expansion was in 2012 into Anchorage. And honestly, because our leads were naturally, organically taking us there anyway, and I say this because I learned very fast that it was because it naturally and organically happened. That's why I was successful. But I woke up one day and thought, oh my gosh, I'm a genius. This is awesome. only to find out that when you try to go expand into another city in another state, and you don't have that natural organic expansion happening, and you don't have a leader getting up every day and driving it, that's a recipe for disaster. And I think that that's what a lot of people have found, is they don't realize how much of them as the leader shows up every day when they show up.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're not showing up in another location, A, you better have a good leader there showing up, and B, you need the leads and the systems and models to sustain it.
Okay. So a great leader, the leads, the systems, the models. Yes.
And I would say this, you can have a great leader. Well, let me say it a different way. You can have all the best systems and models and hub in the world, and if you don't have the right leader, it is not going to work.
Yeah.
However, you can have a great leader and have marginal systems and marginal models to follow. And if you've got a good leader, they're going to figure it out and it will work.
So is finding the leader then, is that the key? Before you even decide you're going to expand, make sure you find the correct leader?
Yes, because I'll give you an example. I did not wake up one day and want to be in Whitefish Bay, Wisconsin. But I'm in Whitefish Bay, Wisconsin, and I have an amazing leader there who has a team of 7 and is just doing a phenomenal job. And that's what I mean. You know, the leader showed up, and he has done an amazing job. Super proud of him. But I didn't wake up and say, I want to go to Whitefish Bay. I woke up and a leader showed up.
Yeah.
So
okay.
People ask me all the time, well, you know, why aren't you in this state, or why aren't you over here? Because the leader hasn't shown up yet.
So Wisconsin, you're in Wisconsin as well. That's obviously something I missed in your intro. What other expansion teams do you have, if any, that I left out? How many expansion teams do you have?
44.
You have 44 expansion teams.
So we're in Santa Fe, we're in Clovis, New Mexico, we're in Albuquerque, we're in Dallas, Texas, we're in Austin, Texas, we're in Sarasota, Florida, Naples, Fort Myers, Worcester, Massachusetts, Colorado, Wichita, Kansas. I could go on and on. So.
Okay. So with all of those expansion teams, how many units do you guys actually do today?
Last year we did about 1,400.
Okay. So that's what you said. It's those expansion teams that you're taking from 1,400 to 2,500 this year. So
that's right.
How do you go from 1,400 to 2,500, right? That's a big jump. What do you have to do in your business to make that happen?
Well, the first thing is that the first 2,200 of those closed sales are made up of the individual agents inside of our organization that have said, here's my GPS or my goal sheet, and this is what I want to achieve. So it's really their goal. The additional 300 are really the closings that we expect to happen in Dallas, Texas, where we have only recently shown up. Actually, we just opened in Dallas, Texas here in the last quarter. So we fully anticipate to have 500 agents in Dallas, Texas by the end of the year. However, you know, the results don't show up immediately, you know, that's why we believe we'll have 300 closings in Dallas, Texas this year. However, next year it's probably going to double the size of our organization just because we're in Dallas, Texas with 500 agents.
Okay. Wow. So the big thing I hear when I hear that is we're in Texas, we're just starting out, which makes me think you have no agents today, maybe a handful. And you're going from a handful of agents to 300. So obviously there's something about that. How do you recruit and go from a handful to 300 in a year?
Well, actually, our goal is to close 300 transactions this year, and to actually attract 500 agents.
So 500 agents, yeah. even a bigger question, right? Thank you for the correction.
And I think, and it's always this way. It's always this way. You go find a great leader who has great leadership skills, and we believe we found that person. Actually, we found 2 great leaders already in Dallas. One to run our Preston Road. So Dallas Preston Road office. So we believe we found a great leader for there, and then we also believe we have found a great leader for the entire Dallas area. He's just a driver. He's extremely charismatic. He understands real estate. He understands leadership. And so the key is to find those leaders and let them go do what they do best. And so if really great leaders are going to naturally attract people. And then it's our job in our organization to engage them, onboard them, and help them with the activities such that they achieve a level that they've never achieved before, which is why they'll stay.
Okay. So how do you attract 44 great leaders? I mean, if I want to have this expansion model like you, how do I go about attracting these leaders? Because, I mean, you found 44 of them. I would say it's difficult to find just one or two of them.
It is, and it is extremely difficult. And I think it's most difficult to find the first one or two than it is to find the 44, if you will. It's like anything. It's harder to make your first million than your second million. So finding great leaders initially, I don't know that we know what a great leader looks like until we actually experience it. Because I think sometimes I've thought I had a great leader and I really had a good leader. So what I would say is, how do you go do it? How I have done it is by being willing to travel across the country and give of my time and my systems, basically give a market center or a brokerage or a broker owner, basically anything I have to help them, come in and teach a class for them, an all-day class or a couple-day class, have a mastermind. And I always offer to allow anyone that they want outside of their company to come for free, because when they come outside of their company, then that's my opportunity to get into business with somebody. And what naturally happens when you teach a high-level course for a couple of days is, if there's someone in the room that believes what you believe, meaning they naturally, they can see that you match up when it comes to values or beliefs or leadership, they're going to naturally come towards you. And it's a whole lot more fun.
So you're out presenting, and these people are attracted to you who are with other brands.
Yes.
And they're approaching you, and from there you're just figuring out, is this person a great leader? And there's been times when you've thought they were great leaders, they were good leaders. Can you explain the difference between a good leader and a great leader?
And I would say it this way: a good leader will do what they're asked to do, but they will see me as a person that makes a lot of messes for them. A great leader will come and see everything that's going on in my world and say, give it to me. Just give it to me. Come on, give me. And they don't see it as a big fat mess. They see it as, hey, let me get in there. Let me take this on for you. And they start taking things on without you asking them to do it. And I don't mean little things, because I think all good leaders do that. But I mean, they'll take on, we just got into business with a really great leadership team out of Tucson. They have 5 expansion offices. They themselves closed 500 transactions this year. And when they came on board, and we had a couple of months conversation around, what the expectations were, what's in it for you, what's in it for us. Man, the day they arrived and they said, we're going to take the daily stand-up off your plate. We're going to run it in 5 different time zones across the country, every hour on the hour, so that in every time zone it starts at 8:45. And they took it and drove it, and it just completely came off my plate. Now
that's awesome.
Whew, that is major. So
how long have they been with you now?
Since September.
Okay, so how do you get someone? What value do you bring to get someone who's doing 500 transactions in their business to join your business?
That's a great question. And what's interesting is, I actually, the CEO of our company, of Keller Williams, actually asked me that very question and said, why on earth would they join you? And it's interesting because we had actually, we'd actually looked at that and asked, well, why would they? Why did they? And when you go back and you look at what their answers were, it's kind of interesting. And the one thing that they said was, they said, number one, we believe what you believe. We believe where you're going. We believe in your vision. We believe in your value proposition. We believe in your giving. And we really were able to boil it down to 4 words that kind of describe why they joined us. 1, they're gritty, just like we are. So I love it that yours is called grit. They have a growth mindset. They also have grace. And what I mean by that is, I really like working with people that when someone, let's just say, for instance, that someone, brand new agent, sends you an awful offer. I mean, it's terrible. You actually have some grace to help them instead of just showing them how much they don't know. So I think grit, grace, growth, and then the final one was giving. And they said, that's what your organization is about. Your organization, we believe, can take us further than we can go on our own, and we think you can take us there faster. And then I just pulled it up because here were a couple other things they said. They believed that they could immediately go deeper in their agent count in the locations where they already were because we were there too. So we both have teams in similar cities. And then they also wanted to be part of our internal coaching and training, meaning they wanted to be coached by me, and they wanted to tap into our training. Our leadership meetings, our philanthropy, wealth building opportunities was a big one for them. They wanted to tap into opportunities that we might have that they might not have or may not have for a while.
Because it's not just about what you're doing today, right? It's about creating wealth in the future. So
Exactly.
that's a really powerful one. Something you just said, grit, grace, growth, giving. I want our listeners to ponder those for a minute, because you go from grit to grace, and I love the way you talk about grace. I think that's critical in this business. To growth, which I've read that, with today being our first day meeting, but I've actually read that you are known as growth in this industry. Like, that's what you're known for. So, and then giving, which my understanding is that you actually give back every single transaction, and that you actually let your clients choose who you're going to give to. So please tell us more about that.
So, and then when we got extremely strategic about that process, and about we have an event every year around raising money for charity. And last year, the Growthward Summit, I spoke to you a little bit about it. This year is our 5th year. It's in Phoenix, Arizona, April 18th to the 20th. And it's all about leadership. It's all about real estate, running a team, running a big business. But it's also about what different people did who have become very, very famous when things went badly, and how they pulled themselves out of it. What did they do to come back? For instance, last year, one of the guys that actually not only spoke at the event, but played at our reception that night, his name is Billy McLaughlin. And you might not know of him, but he was the #1 acoustical guitarist in the world. And he got dystonia, and it's a rare disease, but basically he couldn't move his right hand. Which is what you play the guitar with.
Right.
And after, long story short, after about 5 years of feeling sorry for himself, he decided to learn to play the guitar left-handed. And it took him almost 5 years to get as good as he was right-handed and make a comeback. And so, just so there's some stories about that as well, and we'll have those this year too. Interesting, the mascot of the Kansas City Chiefs is actually going to be speaking there. And his story is something that's amazing. We also have great leaders speaking there. But the point is this. At the end of that event last year, we had raised $175,000 that we were able to then give a very large sum of money to 3 charities, which for them was super purposeful in their overall plan. Like, one of them was able to buy their building versus rent it, which now means it freed up cash flow for them because they had enough cash to buy it. We kind of went on a project with them to raise $500,000. It was my job to raise $100,000 for them. And by doing so, eliminating their rent such that they could actually hire another person in their organization to help. And it's for homeless youth. If you don't think, and just for everyone listening, I know that all of us have different issues in our cities. But I can tell you that we have over 1,100 children in my hometown that are homeless. And if I have them in Wasilla, Alaska, they're everywhere. And so the raising money now, John Maxwell taught me a really, I think, great point here a few years ago. And he said, when you decide to donate to another organization, be real clear and watch them carefully, because they need to become self-sustaining within 5 years. And if they don't, move on to another organization, because all good 501c3s, they learn to become self-sustaining. And if they're not, move on to another organization. And so we've been super purposeful about helping the ones that we are supporting to become sustainable on their own. So I think that makes it fun too. So,
Yeah.
you know, for me, that now being, you know, people ask me all the time, how can you be in real estate after 35 years? Because I love it. And I love with the money that, you know, I used to be kind of embarrassed that I made money, and I'm honestly, I don't know where profit kind of became a bad word in this world, but you cannot help and you cannot give money if you don't make any money.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't feel badly about making money anymore, and I want to make a buttload of it.
I love it. I want to come back to this contribution thing because I actually believe that that's a big part of your success. But you just mentioned John Maxwell. Now, didn't you just get published or quoted in one of his books?
Yeah, I mean, it was a total surprise. Now let's be very clear. This is like having a, you know, a small little B-roll in a you know, a B movie. It's a bit role. But yes, he did publish a quote of mine in his new book that just came out, which was kind of exciting for me. The book is The Leader's Greatest Return. And he quoted me saying, if you find yourself on an island alone, realize that you created it.
Nice.
And the reason I say that is because probably also one of the things that helped me remove the ceiling by which I operated in was to realize that you can't be a silo, and that the only way you're going to succeed is with and through other people, because you yourself have a certain limit. And you know, there's a while that I just thought, oh, I don't have a limit. Oh, I do. And you've got to have great people that can also drive. And so, yeah, that's I learned that one. It's so funny. The very thing I learned from Gary Keller, John Maxwell quoted me on, and the very thing I learned from John Maxwell, Gary Keller is quoting me in his new book on. It's just funny how that works.
So running Gary's organization, you, I'm guessing, spend a lot of time with Gary?
Yes and no. I mean, what's interesting about Gary is he believes that if he has to tell you how to do something, he doesn't really need you.
You're not the right person.
Yeah, so he does expect as a leader for you to own it, but he definitely holds you accountable for it, as he should.
Mm-hmm.
If you've been enjoying Grit, please help us continue to grow the channel by leaving a 5-star review and sharing it with a friend. Now back to Grit.
What about John Maxwell? How do you know John? How does John know you? How does he quote you? Have you hired him as a business coach, or what's your relationship?
So interesting. I started listening to him 10 or 15 years ago, just on CD. It would come in the mail and I'd listen to it and jot notes and things like that. And one time I heard about a conference he was having, and I went to it. It was in Seattle. It was down by Pike Street Market, and actually got to meet him that day and found out that we had some friends that were, you know, you're only one person away from someone. Mm-hmm. And found out that we had some mutual friends, which kind of started a friendship. And then unfortunately, my oldest son passed away in 2014, and John was the one that helped me write the speech for my son's memorial. And even then, I still wasn't coached by him. The following year, I would always just tell him what I was doing. And the following year, he sent me a text one day and he said, "You've earned the right for me to now mentor you." And so he now mentors me, which I'm extremely grateful for.
Ultimately, he mentors you.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I'm actually flying to Israel on Saturday to spend about 10 days there with him, and he's going to actually baptize me in the Jordan River.
Wow. That's
he
awesome.
used to be a pastor. No one knows.
Very cool. Mm-hmm. Well, that's exciting. I love that just by, you know, whatever it is that attracted you guys, but like you said, you're one connection away. And when you get that opportunity to meet somebody like that, do you go towards it, or do you veer away from it? Right? Because that's a life changer for you.
It is. And I tell everybody all the time, just because you haven't met them doesn't mean they can't mentor you. You know, now with Audible books and with podcasts, you can be mentored by anyone. It's just making that choice. And I do want to give him credit because, well, Gary has taught me so much about visioning and about business. John is the one that has taught me how to put on good events, how to raise money, how to be very strategic and make sure that your giving is going to seed more giving. And so they've taught me a lot. And so I feel not a responsibility, because that's not it. I just genuinely want to help others the way that they have helped me. Mm-hmm. And you know, for the most part, it's because I choose to really dig into what they're saying, their podcasts, their books. I just did a mastermind with Gary Keller last week, and you know, he was mentoring and training us on the difference between loyalty and actually support in your organization. And those, you know, the wheel is round, and we have a choice of whether we're going to be a reservoir or whether we're going to be a river with what we've learned. And I think we should all choose to be rivers and just give it away. Let it flow. Let it flow.
Let's go back to Growthward for a minute. You guys are raised $175,000. How did this all get started, and what's really the drive behind it? What's your why with this?
You know, I get up every day. I want to lead other leaders who want to lead and influence other leaders such that they achieve something that no one else has ever done. That's actually what drives me, is when other people haven't been able to succeed at something. And you can kind of look throughout my life and look at some of the crazy things that I took on that have nothing to do with real estate. And if you look in there, if you look far enough, you'll find out that generally, that's exactly why I did it, because it was a big fat problem, hot potato usually, nobody wanted to touch it, but yet it was a big problem that needed solved. And I think we have a huge problem in this country with homelessness, with homeless youth, with drugs and alcohol, and it, you know, all of which have affected my family. So for me, I get super passionate about it. You know, we sponsor a teen challenge here in Phoenix and in Alaska, and also in New Mexico. These are organizations that change people's lives. And all of us, I don't think there's probably anyone that doesn't listen to this podcast and doesn't know someone in their family somewhere that is being affected by one of those topics. Either that, and or the other organization is the Dream Center, which is it's very similar to Teen Challenge, but instead of drug and alcohol, they save women from sex trafficking, and that's a huge problem here in Phoenix, Arizona. And so if you think about it, you think about expansion, you think about being in 44 locations, every one of those 44 locations have all three of those issues.
Absolutely.
So by being involved in those issues, we can be involved in every one of those communities. And I think if you're in business, you have a responsibility to be involved in your communities. And so we are super heavily involved in my hometown, and then also in other locations, obviously across the country. And so I'll say this. I asked John one time, I was buying a fourplex, and it took me about 5 years to save up the money to buy a fourplex. It's called Kristan's Home. And it's for kids that that graduate the programs, because when you graduate a Teen Challenge program, generally you have a felony. You know how hard it is to get a job and find housing if you have a felony? Well, if you can't get a job and you can't find housing, you slip right back into it. Mm-hmm. So my goal was to raise enough money to buy a fourplex that when they got out, they have a place to stay, and through our call center that they have a place to get a job. And so it took me about a year to raise the money. And at the end of that period, or a couple of years, at the end of that period of time, I said to John, John, the need is so huge, and what I've done is so small. Here's what he said: Kristan, do for one which you wish you could do for many. And that has always stuck with me. So I think we all think the problem is too big for any one of us. True, but the problem is not too big for all of us. So I think as a tribe, if we get super purposeful about just doing the part that we can do, maybe for you it's being a volunteer, maybe it's anytime we have an event, we've got to have volunteers that help us put on the events. And so I don't know what it is, but I know that all of us have gifts and talents. All of us can be involved, and it does take a village to do anything. And so I guess I just am naive enough to believe that we can make a difference.
Yeah, it's definitely a huge epidemic. I used to have a company called Drug Talk that was just about educating families on the dangers of the new face of drugs, really, which is a pill, right? So anyway, I love that you do that. Also, can you tell us more about you guys donating every time you sell a home back to your client's charity? I think that's amazing that you guys do that.
So we started that in Wasilla, and basically, you know, we give our clients a list of all the local 501c3s at the time, you know, and they get to select. It might be the dog and puppy rescue, it might be the senior center, it might be Teen Challenge, it could be, but all the 501c3s are listed for that local area, and they can choose. And then when the transaction closes, we set aside that money, and at the end of the month we send a check, because it might be that more than one person has chosen that charity. Mm-hmm. And we send checks, you know. And it's kind of interesting what happens. It's kind of the unanticipated positive consequences that you don't, and all of a sudden, you know, people would come up to me in the store and say, oh, you're that realtor that supports the dog and puppy rescue, or you're that realtor that supports the senior center. So it's kind of interesting, and people, they want to become part of something bigger. And if you just, you know, because when we would send that, we would also send wristbands that say giving back. We would send this certificate that said we donated in their name. Mm-hmm. And it over time, when you're donating, you know, hundreds and hundreds of dollars over the course of a year, it all of a sudden, there's a book, Adam Grant wrote it, about strategic giving. It's called Give and Take. And the thesis of the book is the poorest of people give and the richest of people give. What's the difference? And the difference is strategic giving. The people that really give strategically, what happens is their businesses actually blow up because they're very purposeful about their giving. And so our charity is called Kristan's Home of Hope. And when you buy or sell with the Kristan Cole Real Estate Network, you're supporting safe housing for at-risk youth. Safe housing for at-risk youth can look a lot of different ways. We've bought air conditioners for cars that were transporting children. We have, you know, we have sponsored the Dream Center. We've done a lot of things because it does support safe housing. Safe housing doesn't mean build a house. It means support sometimes a house that's already built that needs repair, that needs help, that needs something.
So that is your own 501c3, and that is on the list of 501c3s that they can choose from. Is that how you do that?
Yeah, absolutely.
So although your purpose is an intent is to not drive business, it's obvious you care about these people, but it all comes full circle, right? When you're giving, you're receiving. And so, yeah, it was awesome.
Funny. A quick story about that. I got a call from the mayor of Wasilla, and he said, I saw that you're doing this fundraiser for Teen Challenge. I said, or for my house. I said, yes. And he said, well, you know, the city, he said, here's what you don't know. Since you started donating to them, like, you know, pretty big checks, $7,500 here, $10,000 here, $50,000 in December. And he said, I want you to know what a burden you have taken off the city. And he said, we appreciate it so much that in the month of December, as the mayor, I get on the radio once a week and talk about what's going on in the city. And I just want you to know that I'm going to talk about and support your company with your event that's coming up every week on the radio, because we appreciate you taking, you as a private citizen are you know, there are other businesses now following suit, and you've taken a huge burden off the city.
I love that you're so passionate about this, Kristan. I can tell, I can feel it. I can feel it through this video. So tell us more. Growthward, it's coming up here in April. Who is that for? Who should go? Give us the details about really, you know, who should be at this event.
What I love is that we bring in incredible speakers who everyone would know, like John Maxwell. I mean, I did a 20-minute Q&A with him last year. So I bring in really great speakers who can speak to anyone, but primarily it's for you know, leaders and business owners, of course, real estate agents, but you can apply anything they say to any business or any leadership group. And so the thing I love about it is that it's a small enough group that you actually can meet with the leaders when we do our reception that evening, or by the fire pit in the evening. We do it here in Phoenix because it tends to be nice weather in April. And so you really get one-on-one time that if you went to a big conference like I was at last week, that's just not possible. So we limit it to 400 people, and it really becomes a very, it's an intimate event, and yet at the same time, all of the speakers come for free. And they come for free because John donated $20,000 last year in addition to the 20-minute Q&A. And so, because they believe it, they believe in the purpose. They believe in they know that what this is going to do. So I want to bring in such incredible value that people leave there believing and feeling like that they got more from the event than anything they could have given. So, some of the leaders that are coming in this year, there's 4 or 5 of them that are specific in real estate, but they're the top half of 1%. I mean, they're really the people that are crushing it. But then also leaders from all different journeys in life, whether it be from the music industry or from the speakers and leadership and book author industry, or whether it's from, I'll tell you one of the leaders. One of them is going to speak this year. His name is Ashley Woolridge, and he is the senior pastor at CCV, which is Christ Valley. And anyway, his church has 35,000 people. And what he says is, I'm not a big church. I'm a little church with a big vision. And he's growing his church via expansion. He's doing it exactly like we are expansion. So the point is this: business is business. And whether or not it is a 501c3 or real estate business or a church or a music industry, business is business. And there are certain time-tested truths of business. And so people coming should have the expectation that the one thing that I'm going to speak on is how to build an empire. And I gave that presentation last week in Dallas to a very, very large organization or group of people. And the whole purpose is that there's some time-tested truths that if you just learn those, and then all you have to do is manage to them the rest of your career. But if you learn them early and you just manage to those decisions, you can have an incredibly great business. And so that's what it's about. So it's about pouring into them and teaching them to be better leaders, better business people, but at the same time, by the people who have not only done it, but they're still in it.
Mm-hmm.
In it.
Is there a place our listeners can go to learn more about how to build an empire? Do you have a website that talks about that, or?
So if they go to growthward.com, if you click on, events, it'll tell you where I'm going to be here. I'm going to Vegas tomorrow to teach, all week long in different places, or to speak in different places. So that website will definitely tell you where I am at any moment. Also tell you about the Growthward event that's coming up in April, the 18th and 20th.
So growthward.com, everyone, go to that. Just in wrapping up here, Kristan, thank you. It's been great getting to know you. Just a few more questions here. Short list that we ask all of our guests. First, what's your favorite book, or what's your favorite source of learning?
Books, definitely. And if it can't be in person, then by Audible. And the one that I'm listening to right now is the new one by Simon Sinek, Infinite Change, or Infinite Games. Yep. And of course, anybody that has read the book and then is listening to this podcast would know why I'm so interested in that. And it's because people think that people leave organizations because of money, and that's usually number 3 or number 4. One of the reasons they stay is because they believe in a community of people that are doing something that's greater than themselves. And from reading his book, he really takes you from the golden circle of why am I doing this to actually getting the results done. And you have to know why you're doing it first, because if you don't know why, you're never going to get to the how or the what and the results. And so that's probably my favorite book right this minute. It's always the one I'm reading, I suppose, because if I don't like it, I stop reading it.
Exactly.
And
Yeah,
you
that's
know,
great. I remember when Simon came out with the why, and his speech just went viral right off TED Talks, and ever since then, when Simon speaks, people listen. Right? He's great. I love Simon. What's your favorite place?
my favorite what?
Your favorite place?
Place, like
Yeah, like where would you want to go if you could go anywhere in the world and spend time? Where is it you like to go?
Oh my gosh. You know, first of all, I love Alaska. You know, what's not to love? And every time I'm there is just something about it when I land. It makes me cry every time. And it's because it just feels so incredibly like I can breathe. But I will tell you, our family, you know, I've lived in Alaska for 50 years. Our entire family has always loved Mexico, and my husband and I own a villa down there in Cabo, and we go there at least once a year, if not twice, because we just really feel like it's a warm place to go, because Alaska is not very warm right now.
Yeah.
It also gives us that same feeling. It allows us to think, and I think setting aside thinking time is so important. We don't do enough of that. And so I would say that's probably, I love it. I mean, gosh.
I love it. Are you in the San Jose del Cabo area, or where are you at down there?
So we're just outside of Cabo, at the Hacienda El Cantata. It's right next to, I can't think of the name of it. It's where all the famous people like Peyton Manning have houses and things like that. I can look over the wall at their houses. So it makes me feel pretty safe if they've got a house next door.
Yeah, right there, close to the one and only.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. And what's your favorite thing to do in your personal time?
Boy, I would say honestly, it's do anything with my family, whether it's you know, because I do enjoy what I do. Yes, I golf, but golfing takes a lot of time. But I would say if I have extra time right now, we go do something. We go, you know, one year when my son, when he had his 40th birthday, we took him, I said, we'll go anywhere in the world you want to go. He said, I want to go to Denali. I'm like, are you kidding me? Mm-hmm. But he climbed Denali, and he actually summited. And in Denali Park, you have to make your reservations super early, and it's super expensive, but you're completely off the grid. The hotel back there is completely off the grid. And I cannot tell you how much fun we had, because the entertainment was us, you know, doing goofy stuff around the fire pit and stuff, and fly fishing and gold panning and riding our bikes up to Wonder Lake at midnight, and going back there at 7 o'clock in the morning and taking our picture in Wonder Lake with Mount McKinley reflecting on it. And my husband at first was kind of like, I can't believe we're going to spend this kind of money on this trip. And when the trip was over, it was only a 4-day trip. He said it was worth every penny. So, and it was because we spent so much time as a family just having seriously good old fashioned fun.
Yeah, that's great. I love it. This is really the last question, and if you could give just one piece of advice, and you've given a lot of advice today, but if there's just one thing that you want people to take away from this, what would that be?
You know, life is too short to not be doing what you love every day. People ask me so often, when are you going to retire? And it doesn't even dawn on me. So I would say, because I love what I do, so to me it's not work. Although I would tell you, I have my days just like anyone else where I'm like, whoo. But what I would say is, gosh, love what you do. And if you don't, go find another business, another leader, another place where the community is such that you get up every day and love going to work and love participating, because there's 3 words this year that have become kind of my mantra. It's called more than us. And the truth is, none of us can accomplish anything by ourselves, but because it's more than us. But together, we can accomplish so much so fast that actually can change that it can change an industry on a dime. And so I would, from my perspective is give it away, because if you give it away and other people can get there faster with you, I just call it more than us, because it is about more than us. We cannot do all this on our own, nor should we really want to. And it's a lot more fun doing it together with a tribe.
Well said.
Go find something you love to do.
Kristan, thank you. That was great. Thanks again for the time today. It sounds like the best way to get a hold of you is at your growthward.com.
Yeah, they can contact me through that. Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks again for being on the show today.
Thank you for the opportunity. It was my honor.
Thank you for joining us on our podcast. If you have an interest in a free 7-day trial of Sisu, go to sisu.co, sisu.co. Make sure that you use the coupon code GRIT, that's GRIT, to waive all your setup fees and receive a 10% discount on your subscription. If you enjoyed listening to this podcast and want to subscribe, search GRIT, the Real Estate Growth Mindset, on iTunes, Spotify, or Podbean. And with that, we'll catch you next time. Take care.